So this is where we were left off last class. Right? We have our drawing, our geometry, our lines, our grid, guidelines, all of which we can find right here, right? These layers right there. Now the next step is to export it, right? So that we can bring it onto Illustrator, right? And remember, we're exporting line work, right? And just the concept, right, or just the action of export, right? That's the command, right? So if we go ahead and type export, enter, right? Notice that my command line changes up top. Select objects to export, right? I want to do a window, right, that selects everything that I want to export. All right. Press enter when done. Okay, Rhino, I am done. Now this window pops up. Now there's three things that you gotta be mindful about this, right? That I always mention when you're working with files. Name, location, and type, right? What's the name of the file? Right? I like to call this something with export, right? Line work export. I'll just put L1 for logo 1. Location, in this case, I'm gonna do a desktop. And last, this is really important that you actually select Adobe Illustrator file, right? By default, you're gonna have a Rhino export. Guess what? You're just gonna get another Rhino file, which is what you already have, right? You want an AI file. And that's the beauty of Rhino as well, that you can export in so many formats right here, which by the way, if you're ever curious, right, these are all the different files that you can create on Rhino, which is pretty awesome, including DWGs, DXFs, all right, which are AutoCAD files, SketchUp files, all sorts of things. And some of them, these settings you use for 3D printing, but we'll get there later, right? So right there, my format, you're gonna have as default Rhino. We want to change that, all right? And what do we want to change that to? AI. Okay, I'll go ahead and click Save. This window pops up. For right now, we don't have to worry about any of this. So I'll just click OK. Okay, so far so good. Now, that export is right here. Logo, Linework export L1. Okay, so I'll go to Illustrator. I'll go to File Open, Desktop, and I think that was with the L1, and I open. You might get this message right here. You can click OK. Right, and we got that. Additionally, right, that's when you go ahead and open the template that I have provided for you guys on Blackboard, which is this one right here. Now, the first thing that you should do, right, is do a file save as, so that you keep the original, right? File save as. I'll do my desktop, right? P1 layout. Maybe I can my 3 logos. My 3 logos. Right? You know, it can be a little bit more or less descriptive in your naming conventions, but I'll go ahead and save that, right? So that I keep the original template. Now from that, right, you'll see that I'm giving you guys this template with these layers right here. Mainly the margins, right? There's what right now they're locked, and I locked them for you so that you don't select them by mistake. But I want to set up my 3 pages, right? That's one of the first things that I want to do. And I've gotten asked this a lot, and the things that the computers right here in the classroom, they're set up differently. And you guys sometimes don't have this bar up here, right? All of these tools right here. If you go under your computer rather and you don't have that, my version of Rhino of Illustrator is different. If you go under Essentials, you should have an Essentials Classic on your in the school's computer, and you'll see that you'll get all of these settings that I have here on the top, which the one that I want is the document setup. So what I want to do is to copy this template so that I have the 3 sheets for my 3 logos. The first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to unlock the margins so that I copy those as well. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. How do we do this? You create new artboards. You go to document setup, edit artboards. Now, while holding Alt and holding Shift at the same time, click and drag to the right. All right. Hold Alt, Shift, click and drag to the right. All right. Press V as in Victor or Escape, and you're out of that. These are going to be option A, B, C. Right. And those are the things that we're changing. Notice as well that I'm asking you guys now to insert your initials. Right? I know that your name will be down here, but perhaps you're working with all your initials, which you don't usually include as your signature name. So I want to see is like, oh, there's actually an I there. There's actually a J hidden there, right? So that when I'm reading this, it's like, oh, okay, I see it. So we're labeling this as option A, right? Option B, right? Etc. Now, this initials things, right? It might change. Maybe my whole initials, right, is JJMM, right? For you might have 3 initials. Maybe one logo used 2 initials, the other one used 3 initials, the other one went back to 2 initials, right? So update those accordingly, right? It's not just the initials of your name, it's the initials of your name that you actually use to develop the logo that you're referencing on each of these pages right here. Okay, and I'll go ahead and maybe change one right there, option C right there. Again, for text, just double click on the text box right there. We edit whatever we need to edit. Just make sure that you exit by pressing escape. All right, we press escape and we exit out of the box right there. Now I have my Illustrator file. Let's go back to that export, that original export that you did. And what we do, right, we select it, right, and we want to copy. Now, before we do that, right, I need you guys to double check for me or verify that you have a setting on right here. It's really important. Okay, so you go onto your layers on Illustrator. That's this little icon right here on the bottom right. Layers. Right? We click there, and what do we see right here? All the layers. And where are these layers from? Rhino. Right? These are the same layers that you used in Rhino right here. Now, please go ahead and check that when you click on this menu right here, there's the little box with lines. You click there. This setting is on or checked. Paste remember layers. That setting allows you to copy objects. Well, when that thing is on, right, and you copy objects, and by objects I mean line or work from one Illustrator file to another one, you bring its layers with it, which that's what we want. Okay, so make sure that paste remember layers is checked. In my case, it already is. I think by default it may not be checked already, so let's make sure that we have that right there. Paste remember layers checked. Once we do that, I select my artwork, my line work, right, all of it. Let's make sure that we don't leave anything behind. I press, in my case, I like to use the keys, my keys, right? So I press Control Z as in copy. I go into my 3 logos layout and I click on my first board, click, and then I press Control V as in Victor, right? And it pastes that right there, right? So I'm going to move it over here. Now, remember, very important that whenever you're scaling your work up or down, that we hold down what? Shift, right? Correct. Especially in this case, right? Especially in this case. So we hold on Shift, right? And in this case, right, let's just try to bring it as big as possible without getting too close to the margins, right? I think somewhere there is fine. You can move stuff around on Illustrator with your keys, right? Up, down, right, left keys. However, you see that these very tiny increments. So if you actually hold down Shift and you move up or down, you get bigger or larger increments. Right? And that's also how we can move stuff around. I'm holding Shift right now, and I'm using my arrows on my keyboard to move stuff with desired position. Okay, so let's say that it's that right there. I'm gonna exit. Okay, I'm gonna go back into my layers. make sure that we lock my margins so that they don't get out of place, right? And these are these blue lines right here. I saw some of you guys are using your locks and you're hiding on Rhino already. That's very good. That's a really good practice to have. Um, Carry that on onto Illustrator as well, and you'll see that it facilitates. You can actually lock and hide stuff simultaneously just by clicking and dragging your mouse. You can turn on and off stuff all at once. Oops, but I just moved the layer, so I don't want to do that. So I'm gonna turn everything back on, and I'm unlocking everything except for my margins. All right, guys. So we have our objects right here, and this is actually pretty straightforward, right? When you have the right layer set up, and that's why layer management it's so important from Rhino. If you're gonna bring it onto Illustrator, why? Well, because what I want to do now, at the end of the day, I just want to have one color. What is that color going to represent? Your guides, right? Your construction lines, right? The geometry, right? The hidden geometry of your work. That's the only color that I want to have at the end. That means that all these other color lines, including the text, must be turned into black colors, right? So the way that we do this, right, is we rely heavily on our layers, right? So check this out. If I click on a line, notice that its properties are shown right here to the bottom left. Okay, I clicked on this object right there, and it tells me that it's a purple outline with no fill, right? And this right here, these two boxes, they're very helpful when you're working here on Illustrator. They tell you the color properties of any object, right? The fill and the stroke. Okay, so I clicked on that object right there, and I'll move it so you know which one is it. Is this star or this arrow right there? But what if I want to select everything that has that color, right, or those properties? Well, notice that when you click on it, your layers, right, this gets turned on, right? Whatever you click on, notice that it tells you what layer is on, right? That's on dims, right? So this purple right there, it's actually pen number 2. Okay, so the first box right here on layers, that's to make it visual, turn it on and off. The next one is to locked. Right? The next one is the layer color. Now, if you keep going through it, you have this donut at the end, right? And if you click on that, it selects everything that it's on that layer. Everything that it's on that layer. Why is that important? Well, because I can make things faster, right? By clicking on that guy right there, double click on the purple line right there, and actually turning that into black. Hit OK, right? And I don't know if you can see, but these lines are now black rather than this purple right there. All right, I can repeat that, right? So again, I can select one of the lines right there, see what layer it's on. Oh, that's actually pen number 1. I'm going to click on the donut right here, click on pen number 1, right? Now everything is done that is on pen number 1 is selected. Double click on its color and turn it to black. Now, additionally, right, what was the reason that we created the different pens? For the line thickness, right, which we call that our line weight. Here in Illustrator, it's called your stroke, right? The thickness of the line, right? Because I actually want this margins right here, which is pen number 1 again, right? Is it? No, pen number 2, right? To be a little bit thicker, right? That's pen number 2 right there. Turn it on and off. So I'm going to go ahead and select everything that is inside of pen number 2 again. And I'm going to change its line weight. That is right here under stroke. I have a 1. I click on that arrow right there to bring down this menu. What happens if I press 2? Now, right, that pops up. Nice. Okay. Now, if I zoom in here, right, something odd is happening, right? My grid is on top of my line work. I don't want that because remember, the grid is not part of the design. The grid is just there as a reference. Why is that? That's because your layer order, right? On Illustrator, right, the layer that is at the bottom of your layer list, that's the layer that is going to be at the bottom of your work. If we look into our layers, the grid, both of the grid layers are on top, right? So how do I change that? Very easily, right? I select the layer that I want to move. I click and I drag it. Now notice that there's two options. I can either drag it in between two layers or I can drag it inside of a layer. We don't want that. We want to drag it in between a layer, which is that right there. That's how you see, you get that line right there. Wait, where do you go? I think I dropped it on, actually, on, there you go. So again, I want to select the grid layer and drag it all the way down, right? Probably about there. Remember, not inside of a layer, right? But in between a layer, right? And do you guys see that? I'm gonna undo. Do you guys see that change? Right? That's how it looked. I'll do a redo, and that's ultimately how it looks. That was my minor grids. I'm gonna do that as well with my major grids. Select the grid, drag it, all right? And I'm actually gonna put my major on top of my minor grids. Okay. And now we're cleaning up, and you can barely tell it, but it's got a lot clearer, now. The logo is what stands out. Now the guidelines, those we want to live on top, right? Those we do want to live on top as we have right there. Okay, guys. So we took care of our pens. That's not right. I'm missing one more pen, which is this one right here, which for me is my pen number 3. That still has its original color. So that blue purple. So I'm going to select it to see what layer it's on. It's layer number 3. Select everything that is on layer number 3. Change its color to black. And in this case, since this is my outline, right, I'm actually going to give it a really thick outline, which is layer number 3. Another command that helps a lot when working on Illustrator, if you press Control 0, you see your entire page, which I think I had already mentioned that, right? Control 0 brings out or zooms into the entire page. You can think about it as zoom extents. All right, so if I turn off my guides, you see that's what I'm having so far. If I turn off my dims, that's what I have, right? And if I turn off my grid, right there, that's basically the logo. That's the only part that is actually part of the logo, right? That what is left there, all right? Let's continue editing our constructions lines since we're working on a sort of technical drawing, all right? That's interesting to see as well. All right. Turn that one on and turn that one on. Next, right, I like to change this blue or teal onto black, right? Now, I'm going to use this example, right, to show you how you can actually tweak layers within Illustrator, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to create 3 different sub layers within dimensions, and we're going to divide them the following way, right? We're going to create 3 sub layers inside of dimensions. One of them is going to have lines, the other one's going to have arrows, and the other one is going to have text. All right, guys? So follow me, okay? Follow me because we can get lost pretty quickly right here, all right? So if I click on this arrow under the dims layer, you see all the sub layers that you have. And in this case, these are just lines, right? And different objects that you have, the different dimensions that you have. Right now, that's how they're subdivided. I don't want that, right? As I mentioned, I want to create 3 new subcategories. So I click under dims, click under create new sub layer, right? It creates this layer right there. You double click on it. And what was one of the sub layers that I wanted to create? Lines. right? So I go ahead and type lines, enter. I go back to dims, click under dims, create a new subcategory. What was another subcategory that I wanted to create? Yes, I think I heard it, right? Arrows, right? Enter, and the third subcategory was text, right? Now, what are we doing? Well, I want to bring all of this text onto this subcategory. I want to bring all of these lines into this line subcategory. And I want to bring all of these arrows onto the arrow subcategory. I'm going to go ahead and hide or turn off all the other layers so that we don't get distracted by them, right? And we end up with that, right? Only dimensions. Right, guys? You guys are doing great. Follow along. Right now, each of these objects are grouped, right? A dimension is grouped, and each group has lines, arrows, and text. I actually want to undo that. So I select all of my dimensions, right click, click ungroup. So I have ungrouped them. Now if I click on this text right here, that's the only thing that you'll select. All right, guys. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to show you a very helpful selection tool here on Illustrator, right? It's the selection tool, right? This one right here. Now, how do we do this? Well, we click on a line, we go to select, same, fill and stroke, right? That's going to select all the objects that have the same fill and stroke as the one that I selected. Why do I want to do that? So that I select those in particular and bring them to its subcategory, lines, right here. How do we do that? Well, we first select them, and once they're selected, you get this little box right here. You click on that, and you bring it to the lines layer right there. I'll go ahead and turn off, and you see that those lines disappear, right? That's good. That's what we want, right? So select the arrows, select, same, fill and stroke. We go to this little box right here. We click and drag, and we drop it now under arrows. Turn off arrows. Arrows should disappear. Lastly, right, I can just select all of my text that is left over. Click and drag again on this little box and bring it under text. Turn off text, and it disappears. Now, why are we doing this? We're doing this so that we can edit these objects individually by its layer, right? We have reassigned their layer, right? So I'm going to minimize this right here. Actually, I'm going to turn them back on, right? Turn them off right there, and there we go. I turn back everything on. All right. So now that we have done that, this becomes very simple, right? Because I can expand my dims layer, select all of my text. We go to its properties to its left, double click on the fill color, give it a black, and click OK. Oops. Let's see. Okay. There we go. All right, we're gonna have to do it like that. Whoops. Update. All right, we double click on the color right there. Make it black right there. I think let's work with the lines first. We'll go back to the text. Text works a little bit differently, right? So arrows, select all the arrows together. Double click on the teal right there, bring it black. All right, that gets updated. Select all my lines at once, click. Now notice that here we don't have a fill because they are lines. We have a stroke color. All right, so we double click on that, hit OK, change the color, hit OK. All right. Now let's see what's going on with their text. All right, so I'm going to turn off everything but our text. Let's see, is this grouped? No. We're going to have to change all of our text manually. Whoops. Let's see if this group works, right? So I select that box. There's this tool right here which is called the eyedropper. The eyedropper copies properties from one object to the other one. So this one is selected. I click on the target, which is that right there, and it doesn't work. So we'll have to do it manually, which is okay. We just double click on it. This message right here is, I think, because of the text that we copy from Rhino. It's okay. We just hit update. Now this gets turned on, and we change its color. Right, we do that. Change all of this ones right here. Change its color. This is also another or an opportunity for you if you need to edit some of this text right here for whatever reason. You can edit it. Because remember, I want to turn everything into black tones and colors. All right, and that's kind of what I was trying to avoid right here. Trying to do it manually, but seems to not be working. So we'll have to do is manually, at least just the text. Update. Maybe you guys don't get that message. I'm not sure why I'm getting it. Double click that right there. Right. So I'll go ahead and change those right there, and I'll come back later on. Right. So we're making progress. Right. Things have changed. Right. Now the last thing that I want to change, right, once I have changed my dimensions, and this is good because if you actually double click on the lines right there for the text, you'll see that its stroke right there, it's smaller. Right. So again, dimensions are a reference, but we don't want these lines that are the lines for the dimensions to be confused, right, by lines of the actual design, of the actual of your actual design. Right. So it's nice that those are thinner, right? And you'll see that we start working with hierarchy of lines, right, and thicknesses, right? And in this case, what stands out the most, right, should be your project. And the last thing that we're going to do is change your construction lines. All right. So I want to show you guys how to create, how to edit the different line types. All right. So the first thing that I'm going to do is create a set of center lines, right? And certain lines, if anyone remembers, right, there is a dash, dot, dash, dot. So what we want to change, right, and I'll zoom in so that we see those changes, right? Is this line right there to be a center line. That we change through the stroke right here. Right? We click on stroke right there. We turn on dash line. Turn it on. You see that as soon as I turn it on, it turns into a dash line. Now, we don't want any type of dash line. We want a center line. So I go back and select it. Go back to stroke. Now, these are the settings that I'm going to change. The dash, gap, dash. So we want a long dash. Let's say, and for the most part, we always have to kind of like do back and forth between these. I'll do a 6 dash. I'll do maybe a 2 gap. Bless you. And let's do perhaps another 3 dash. Right, so it's changing right there, and let's do another 2. So I'm going to change my gaps. You see, it worked, except that these are too close together. Okay, so select the line again. Let's go back to the stroke right there. I'm gonna change the gap right here actually to be bigger. What happens if we go to a 6 gap? 6. And the dash, let's exaggerate that to a 12. Whoops. But first, make sure that you have the line selected. There you go. So there's 12, 6, 6. There we go. That's more like it. And let me bring it out here to the side so you can see its qualities, right? That's what we mean by dash dot dash. It's a long dash, this little dot piece right there, and then another dash. That's standard for center lines. That's your standard um, line type for a center line. And again, this line is actually dissecting the entire drawing in half. I'm going to select it again and give it a bigger or a thicker outline. So I'll send it to a 2 right there so that it stands out. Now that's the center line on the y-axis. We have another center line on the x. Again, I don't have to set the settings again for it. I can just select the line, press I as in eyedropper, and I inherit the properties from that other line right there. Press V as in Victor to escape. Zoom out. Great. Right? Now those are center lines. Right? Those are center lines right there. This one right here, it's a center line as well. So I press I, inherit these properties, and bring it right there. And this one right here, it's also a center line. Press I, get right there. Now the rest are not center line, but they're just guidelines, and we're gonna use dash for it. A combination of dash and dots. Right? So we repeat the same action, right? Select the line, right? We go to its stroke right here to the top left, and we change that to a dash. Right? And now this is a dashed line. Oops. Except that it had already the properties, right, from the center line. So we can select that line again and delete those right there. And we can come up with our own dash. And dash, you just have to worry about one box right there. So that might, let's see how it looks. Maybe too big of a dash. So maybe select that, stroke. What happens if we do actually a 6? More like it. Okay. Select this other line right there, which should have the same properties. Press I for eyedropper, match them. Okay, good. Now last, I want to turn this one into another guideline, but I'll use a different one. Let's use dots. All right. So I'll go to stroke, turn it into a dashed line, and let's turn it into a dot by giving it a very, very small dash and a larger gap in between them. So I'll maybe use even like a 2 and a gap of maybe 5. Right, maybe even more. Select it again, stroke. I'll use a 1, right, and it turns into dots. Right. So here's a good spot right here. So here you can see the 3 different lines right there, and it's really important, right, that you start training your eye to pick this up, right? Oh, that's actually a different line than this one right here, because again, that's how we communicate in architecture, right? Through lines, and of course the drawing part of it, but line thickness, which is your line weight, and your line types, it's a key component of mastering, right, for your architectural drawings. And if you look at what the guys in Studio 2 are doing in Professor Mireles' class, which is the diagramming of the mythology, that's a heavy use of line weight. That's what that assignment is pushing you, right, to explore the use of line weights. And this is how you actually work with them here on Illustrator. And I have just finished my first logo right here. Right, I can just go back and edit this guys right there. Update. Go ahead and update all of this at once real quick. All right. I wonder if I update them all together, I can now change them together. Most likely yes. There we go. Perfect. All right. So I'll look into what that message is about. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. You have your first logo right there or example of this. That's the option A, B, and C. Don't forget to update. In this case, actually, you guys know what initials these are? What letters these are? All right. This is actually A, B for architecture department. I don't know if I show you guys this whole exercise rather. I was just using the architecture department as a fictitious scenario to develop a logo right there. So that was the A and the D, right? And that's what this initials AD for this. Press Control 0. You zoom out of this. Make sure that you go File, Save to save your changes. And then at the end, you're going to end up with File, Save As. Now format will be PDF to upload and to print. Hit Save. Optimize, always turn it on. Save PDF. And you have the first sheet right there of your 3 logos. Now, again, for this, the idea of this is you explore line weights, line types, and editing of both of those and text on Illustrator. All right. So, questions on that? On some of the steps? I know I might have gone a little bit fast on this, but I want you guys to give you guys time to finish the one that you're working on right now. And to make sure that I covered everything on this right here. Good? All right, guys.